Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to the latest edition of Tider Insider TV, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. I'm Gary Harris, WVUA 23 Sports Director. He's Rodney Orr, TiderInsider.com. And Rodney, I was thinking here as we were waiting to go on, 25 years, that's a lot of Tuesday nights on TV.
You need to add those up.
Yeah, it's about 50 of them a year. So it'd be 1,000 for 20 years, another 1,500 shows or so?
It's a lot.
Yeah. And, you know, when we started this, there weren't any podcasts or webcast or anything, but we're still here for you for Tider Insider TV doing our show, and glad to be with you every Tuesday night. All right, we got a jam-packed edition. We're going to get to football recruiting, huge weekend coming up. We're going to talk about some other topics as well. SEC football possibly going to a 9-game schedule. We're going to begin with Alabama baseball because there is some disappointment. Alabama is not hosting an NCAA regional, and going into the SEC tournament, quite frankly, I think they were on pace to host, but they didn't get one, so now they will be traveling. Although, here's the good news. If you're not going to be at home, be close by. Southern Mississippi and Hattiesburg is hosting. That's about a 2-hour and 45-minute drive. Rodney, as you know, there's a lot of Alabama fans in South Mississippi and Southwest Alabama who can make that trip over to Hattiesburg for the Hattiesburg Regional. Alabama also, I think, likes this draw. They beat USM handily earlier this year in Tuscaloosa. Miami's a team that has name recognition, but I think they've lost like 6 of their last 7 going into the regional. Now, I remember Columbia a couple years ago coming in here and winning 2 out of 3. So there are no gimmies, Rod. But, again, Alabama had hoped to host. I think, like Rob Vaughn, should have gotten an opportunity to host, but they didn't. So now all you can do is move forward.
Well, I go back to what you said. I think in best case scenario, if you don't host, this is it. I mean, I think it's a really good draw for Alabama. Look at Miami. You talked about their struggles. They've been up. They've been down. Now, Columbia, they're a team that won the Ivy League tournament title. So they're really capable. USM, we know that they're ranked top 16 in the country, so they've had a really successful year. But Alabama, of course, as you mentioned, beat them early in the year. So I think when you look at this overall, this is a really good draw for Alabama.
All right, let's look at the case for Alabama, though. And this is what really kind of disappoints you if you're an Alabama fan. They've got the number 13 RPI, and it was number 9 going into the SEC tournament. 22-15 versus top 100 RPI opponents, 20 quad 1 and quad 2 wins, 24-1 in the non-conference, including a perfect record 13-0 in the midweek, 5 non-conference RPI wins, and 41 wins in the SEC. 41 wins overall and 17 wins in the SEC when you count the 1 win in the tournament against Missouri. Rodney, maybe it's happened. I can't recall a resume like this of an SEC team not hosting.
Yeah, and we had a great comparison on TiderInsider.com, Gary, the 2 teams, USM, Southern Miss, and they were really close in a lot of those areas. They really were. Alabama had the advantage in most of those, which kind of said, well, doesn't this kind of tilt it in Bama's favor? It didn't, but they were actually pretty close in a lot of those areas.
But back to what's ahead, and that is to go to Hattiesburg and win this regional, and then if you win it, your super matchup, since this is the 16 seed, Southern Miss would be against the number 1 seed. More than likely, Vanderbilt will win their regional, and you would go to Nashville to play Vanderbilt in the super regional. The good news there is you lost that series, but you should have won it.
Yeah.
They went 1-2 against Vanderbilt, but they were up 7-2 in the 8th inning. We remember in that rubber game match, and probably cost them a chance to host. But if you can win this regional, I think they'll have some confidence going to Nashville.
They should. I mean, you know, it's kind of like we talked about last week when we knew they were going to end up playing Tennessee. They had some success against them, obviously. But, I mean, the experience that they had with Vanderbilt, they should have taken both those games. You're right.
All right, kind of piggybacking on what we said, Rob Vaughn said, you know what, in my mind, there's no doubt we should be hosting a regional, but what are you going to do about it? And that's the right attitude. You know, you're going to cry about it. Nope, we're moving on. We're going to Hattiesburg. They play Miami on Friday at 2 o'clock. I think you'll see Riley Quick in that game. I don't know for sure. I'm going to have Coach Vaughn on my radio show Friday morning at 9:30. But I think this, Rodney, I think that there's not much saving. I think you have to win that first game in a regional.
Yeah,
so I think you throw your best guy.
I would.
Yeah, I think they will. All right, let's move on to SEC spring meetings. This used to be a little get-together down there in Destin for the ADs and some coaches, and now it's become a media event. I mean, there are people everywhere, university presidents, athletic directors, football coaches, men's basketball coaches, a few of the other coaches get down there, and this has become, if you're a college football or basketball writer, you're there. I mean, huge coverage for this. A lot of topics under discussion right now. The biggest, Rodney, probably is this college football playoff and expanding it from 12 teams to 16 teams in 2026. And the SEC and Big Ten's role as kind of almost partners. The ACC and the Big 12 fighting for their spots, you know, and it's so it really is a situation, Rodney. You want it to be about sports, but this is a political process. That's what it's become, right?
Yeah. Well, look, you know, last year we saw what happened. And I think, Gary, the way that all kind of shook out, we saw some teams there. Well, the schedules. You look, for example, the Southern SMU schedule wasn't anything comparable to an SEC schedule. They played teams that were 500 records, and, you know, they get in. A team like Alabama that beats Georgia, as the commissioner mentioned, they don't get in with 9-3. So just one more loss. But yeah, this is an issue that I think we're going to continue to hear a lot of debate about from all of these conferences.
Yeah, and one thing we know we're going to is straight seeding, which I'm a fan of. I don't think you can look at conference champions. You know, nothing against Boise State. They were a good team. Arizona State proved they were a really good team. But did they deserve byes based on what happened during the regular season last year? I don't think so. Yeah. Just seed them based on 1 through 12 or 1 through 16. All right, we're going to stay with the SEC, and it is time for Coach Talk. The spring meetings, as we mentioned, well underway down in Destin, and it's safe to say that the conference commissioner, Greg Sankey, expressed some strong opinions on what's good for the game, and other conferences, i.e. the ACC and the Big 12, putting out press releases about the good of the game. He says, you know what, I've looked out for the good of the game and the good of college athletics, but I'm also the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, and I don't need anybody to tell me my business.
I don't need lectures from others about good of the game. I don't lecture others about good of the game. And coordinating press releases about good of the game, you know, again, okay, you can issue your press statement, but I'm actually looking for ideas to move us forward.
Rod, you and I have discussed Commissioner Sankey numerous times. We don't always agree with him, but in this case, I think he couldn't have handled himself any better. I thought he was prepared and ready to go ahead and just say, listen, you know, don't tell me about the good of the game. The SEC has made concessions in the past. They're not committing right now to a 9-game conference schedule, or really even to any kind of expanded playoff in regards to just keeping the options open, I think is what Greg Sankey wants to do for the SEC, but make sure that the SEC is taken care of in a way that being the top conference in college football for the last 25 years should demand.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to. And like you said, Gary, I think the right thing to do is keep all the options open. And I thought he handled that extremely well. I know some people talked about his demeanor was a little bit angry, or the way he handled that. I thought he handled it extremely well, extremely professional.
All right, so that's the latest from Destin. And we'll have these spring meetings. Then before you know it, it'll be SEC Media Days, and the countdown to football season will be on. Still to come on Tider Insider Television. Of course, recruiting is still the lifeblood of top programs regardless of the portal. High school recruiting is important to Alabama, and Kalen DeBoer is looking to continue that great tradition of top recruiting classes at Alabama in the upcoming session. Plus, we will give you a list of the big-name prospects who are scheduled to be in town this weekend. Alabama hosting some of the top prospects in the country from the high school ranks. Rodney will break it down for you. Plus, we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and if you want to tweet at us, you can do that as well. The phone number, as always, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Go ahead and call in now. Lines are open, or you can email us, TITV@WVUA23.com. And we'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider Television. And welcome back to TITV, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. And Rodney, I've had some people lately on my radio show and they just run into me and say, man, listen, y'all don't talk about recruiting like you used to. Well, it's a lot different. Now, I will say this. I saw someone on social media post that it's one of those things that, have you noticed that recruiting is not as big as it used to be? Yeah, we've noticed. You know, the portal, the signing day being moved the way it has, but it's still big, Rodney. And Alabama is one of those schools. I think there are others that feel like it's still going to start with us at the high school recruiting level. And the summer recruiting season kicks off this weekend. Alabama's having a huge visit weekend coming up.
Yeah, well, the next month, I mean, when you look at each weekend over the next month up till the weekend of June the 20th, they're loaded with top prospects coming in. So, again, we'll go back. Anybody that said Kalen DeBoer can't recruit, won't be able to recruit in the South, he's doing it, Gary. I mean, they've got a lot of top players coming in. One of the top players out of Las Vegas, Jet Washington's a safety, tremendous prospect. There you see him, really physical safety. There's another kid named Jet visiting, too. Now, he's going to be on an unofficial visit, but I want to mention his name, Jet Tamala. He's a quarterback out of Omaha, Nebraska. He's in the Elite 11. He threw for over 3,600 yards and 47 touchdowns last year. He's a guy that's going to be really well, and again, I think the quarterback position in general is valuable every year, but you got to get one this year. You got to get at least one this year. So I think watch out for Jet Tamala out of Nebraska. He's a really good-looking kid. There you see him. You know, he had a tremendous season this last year.
Yeah, you got a full list at TiderInsider.com. So if you're not subscribing already, this would be incentive for you to subscribe for just $48 a year. But Rodney, talk about some of the other. You mentioned the two Jets. Paul McCartney and Wings would be proud. Remember their song Jet? But what about some other guys that are going to be in?
Yeah, well, Boobie Feaster's an outstanding wide receiver from the state of Texas, DeSoto High School. Really good program there. He's a really explosive player. Now, he's a guy a little bit like Ryan Williams in the sense that he's reclassifying. So there may be a lot of people saying, hey, he's only 17 years old. But Boobie is an outstanding player.
And Alabama's had good success with 17-year-olds.
They have. Texas probably the leader right here, but he is an outstanding player. KJ Edwards is another top player out of the state of Texas. He's a really dynamic running back. Not really big, about 5'10", 180, but really explosive. Again, I think Texas. Well, let me take that back. When I said about Boobie Feaster in Texas, I really think LSU's probably the team that has the edge. And Edwards is the kid that from the state of Texas. I think Texas is in good position with. Ryan Mosley is another outstanding wide receiver, and he's from the state of Georgia. Georgia's in there really strong. Alabama's in there. Defensive line is a position, Gary, that we talk quite a bit about. Titan Davis out of St. Louis is a fantastic player. He'll be here. He's got a lot of other top visits over the next month, but Alabama's in pretty good position with him right now. Nolan Wilson's an outstanding defensive lineman from the state of Mississippi down at Picayune. So they're doing really well on the lines of scrimmage. Got some offensive linemen visiting too. Malachi Lee is one of the top offensive tackles in the country. He's from Honolulu, Hawaii. Deacon Schmidt is an outstanding offensive lineman as well. He's out of Windsor, Colorado. He is the #1 player in the state of Colorado. So you kind of get the drift. They've got a lot of positions coming in, a lot of top players. And guess what? I think even over the course of the next month, you're going to have more and more in terms of top quality prospects that come to Tuscaloosa for visits.
And what about a prospect with the letters KJ?
Well, there's K.J. Ford out of Texas. We mentioned K.J.
And
Edwards.
K.J. Edwards, too.
Yeah, two kids out of the state of Texas. But K.J. Ford out of Duncanville, Texas. He's an outside linebacker type, defensive end. High school teammate of Keelan Russell last year. Plays in a great program out there. Again, he's got teams coast to coast pursuing him. I think Alabama is right now in a good position. Sincere Johnson, he's a linebacker out of Cleveland, Ohio, at a school, Glenville, that produces a lot of kids to Ohio State. But don't forget, Alabama went to Ohio last year, got Justin Hill, linebacker out of Cincinnati, Winton Woods. So don't rule Alabama out with Sincere Johnson.
And getting back to K.J. Edwards, I know it's going to be tough to beat Texas for a running back in the state of Texas, but Alabama's got the tradition. You know, you could argue over the last 20 years it's been running back you. Does Alabama have a legit shot to sign this guy?
Well, look, anytime they visit, we used to see this with Nick Saban. You get them on campus, sometimes you feel like you're running third, and all of a sudden you're the team to beat. So you get them on campus. That's the first step, getting KJ. He just recently set this visit up. He had some other visits set, but he put Alabama on his list in terms of the visits. And so that was big that he'll be here on campus. And you never know. Look, I think Alabama, when you start to look ahead, if you're a running back, you look at their depth chart and you say, hey, look, I think I could come in and compete early at Alabama. I really don't know exactly how he might feel about Texas' depth chart, but I can look at Alabama and say there might be a good opportunity for a running back.
All right, quite a recruiting update there, Rod, and as I said, more available at TiderInsider.com. Well, still to come on TITV, Alabama softball had a tough weekend out in Norman at the Super Regional against Oklahoma, but still a heck of a season, and Patrick Murphy was quick to point that out following the Super Regional loss. Plus, up next, phone lines are wide open again this week. I know it's kind of the summer lull, but go ahead and give us a ring. You can get through 205-348-9882 if you want to email us. There's the email address on your screen as well, TITV@WVUA23.com. Tider Insider TV. We'll roll on right after this timeout. Alabama softball fell short of the Women's College World Series. Oklahoma swept the Crimson Tide in 2 games this past weekend at the Norman Super Regional. One game won 3-0, then won 13-2. But Alabama still reached 40 wins. That's the 24th time they've done that. The only times they didn't under Patrick Murphy were 2018 and 2024 in full seasons. Of course, they didn't reach it in 2020, but that was the COVID-shortened season. So, as Murphy said afterwards, you know what? There are a lot of teams that would like to had their season end in the Super Regional. So I know Alabama fans want to, feel like they're back at the top of the SEC, but a big-time recruiting class coming in for next season. A lot of good returners. So if this is the floor, Rodney, if reaching the Super Regional is the floor, I think Alabama next year could take that step as far as getting back, maybe competing for an SEC championship.
Yeah, you mentioned the recruiting class. I know they have 2 of the top pitchers in the country coming in.
They do.
That's big time right there. But let me say this too, Gary. You go to Oklahoma, this is the premier program in the country right now. And you lose 2 games or you get swept, and there's really not, you want to be competitive. Mm-hmm. But I don't think you can gripe about that, because I do think when you look at what NIL, what Oklahoma's pouring into their program, it's not the same.
Yeah, and Alabama did beat them 2 out of 3 in Tuscaloosa in the regular season. All right, let's get to our email question of the day, brought to you as always by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, we're serving your family like our family. Here is the email question of the day from Lewis in Northport. Will the SEC and Big Ten leave the NCAA? Lewis, I don't think there's any plans to do that, because, listen, it's not just about football, okay? The NCAA, let's say this. If you were to leave, then all you play against would be yourself. You'd be one big major conference. I don't think that's the plan. Now, listen, the way things have changed over the last few years, I wouldn't rule anything out down the road, but right now I think it's the Big Ten and SEC's full intent to remain in the NCAA.
Yeah, I think really this kind of got, somebody posted this on the internet, and it got started, Gary. It was rampant on TiderInsider.com that the SEC was leaving the NCAA, and that's just not true.
No, it's not. So, and I don't think the SEC or the Big Ten are planning to do that anytime soon. All right, let's get to, we got a phone call that we're going to get to. All right, Luke over in Clay County is with us. Hey, Luke, how are you?
I'm doing good, guys. How y'all doing?
Doing well, thank you.
My question for Rodney is, you got any information on the big wide receiver out of Benjamin Russell High School in Ellick City, Cedarian Morgan?
Yeah.
And the running back out of Jackson High School is Xavier Crowell.
Yeah, let's start. Make sure we saw that graphic, because they were listening on the phone. It's Cedarian Morgan. And he is a stud. There's no doubt about it. Big wide receiver from Benjamin Russell High School, which we kind of traditionally think of as being Auburn territory. He's going to do something this summer, right?
Yeah, and I think Alabama's in great position with him right now. And again, when I say that, it's not like it used to be. It's a little bit more difficult to predict, and he's coming in for a visit, obviously, and he's got several other schools on his list, Auburn being one of those. As far as E.J. Crowell, I think Alabama's in good position with him. Now, he's supposed to announce late June.
Did he reclassify as well?
He did.
He's
he reclassified. He was going to be the #1 running back heading into the 2027 class, but has now reclassified. He's still a top 75 type prospect. But Yeah, he's supposed to announce. I think it's on June 26th. So that's shortly after his visit to Alabama. I feel good about Xavier Crowell.
That'd be a dynamic duo. That'd be a Julio Jones, Mark Ingram type of dynamic duo right there, possibly for their version, for DeBoer's version, maybe.
It would be.
All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television. After a month of searching, Nate Oates has finally found a new assistant coach. We'll tell you all about it. And phone lines are open. Again, we encourage you to call in. Get a question in. 205-348-9882 is the number. We're going to continue on this Tuesday night in Tuscaloosa with TITV right after this. Nate Oates has finally replaced Ryan Pannone with Chris Fleming. Heavy NBA coaching experience, most recently with the Portland Trail Blazers, also coached for Billy Donovan, former Florida coach with the Bulls, and was a head coach over in Germany and plays that NBA-type, fast-paced style. Veteran guy. He's not not one of these 35-year-old guys. He's 55, so he's been around. I think it's a good hire by Nate Oates. He makes a lot of good hires. That's why all his coaches get hired when they get here, because people are trying to hire his guys. All right, welcome back in. We're going to get to an email question here, and we've got one more email. It's from Rich in Talladega. Is Nate Oates going to sign any more players? A good question. Rodney, we only got about 45 seconds here, but I think he might be waiting to see still what happens with Darius Philon with the draft, even though Darius is staying in. But that is Desmond Claude from USC, a guy that Alabama was supposed to have in this past weekend. He didn't make it. Now I understand Gonzaga's making a huge push, but Alabama's still involved with him. I think, to answer the question, yes, he's going to sign another guy or two.
Yeah, we thought so. We've thought a couple of other guys over the course of the last several weeks, and it just didn't pan out. Like you mentioned, Claude was supposed to visit, didn't make it, so we'll see. And
also looking at Keontae Jones still from Cal State and Northridge, who's yet to make a decision. All right, thanks for the phone calls and emails. We're going to come back and wrap up this edition of TITV right after this. Nick Saban wins at everything. What they say, winners win. 1 year in television, he's already won an Emmy for Outstanding Personality, Emerging On-Air Talent for his work with ESPN Game Day. Way to go, Coach. Just another trophy in the trophy case for Nick Saban. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Tider Insider TV, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. A reminder, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 or anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you tonight with Ryan Williams, one of the cover boys for EA Sports Football, College Football 25 video game. And for Rodney Orr, I am Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.